I really like movies. I really like movies. I like action movies, especially like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 in theaters right now. I think we have a little, yeah, isn't that just awesome? Or maybe the new Pirates movie. I don't have a graphic for that one, but it's pretty. I'm expecting it to be a pretty good movie. The first four were awesome. So, the my favorite part about these movies is not the storyline, because a lot of the times I can tell you right now without even seeing the movie yet, I can tell you what happens. The good guys win, right? Right? That's how it goes. We know how it goes, right? And if it's a really good movie, somewhere in the middle, the virus, the zombie, the whatever it is going to make me believe that they're not going to win. Somewhere in that 90 minutes to 2 hours, it's just, they get me to buy in. And then at the last minute, when things just look as bleak as possible, you hear the deep bass come on. And then you hear the strings. They're slowly getting faster with this ostinato. I love it. And then the electric guitar, like Spike, is playing whatever it is. Thank you. The music just comes up behind them, and you know they're about to win because the music is powerful and deep and everything. And that's the great part about those movies. What I don't like now are the long drawn-out movies, like 007. I used to be a 007 fan. I graduated in '07, and so I remember January 1st, I was stuck on the couch for about 48 hours watching every single 007 movie, because it was 007, right? I can't watch them anymore. I'll get home and if the TV is on, it might be on Paw Patrol. Parents, you love that one. You know what I'm talking about? Most amazing cartoon on now. It could be just about anything. If I haven't seen it before and it's not a very, an intense action flick, I lose focus. I just lose interest, and at the end of a day of work, my belly's full, I'm sitting back in the recliner, and I just drift off. So, any of you have those experiences? That's how it goes. Keeping focus while watching a movie is one thing, but maintaining focus in life, well, that's a whole nother thing, and I think we all struggle with it at different points. It's also, maintaining focus in these long stories is also why I struggle with the book of Job. I mean, come on, 42 chapters. Really? And it's just a whole bunch of talking. This summer, we're going to do a really neat series out of the book of Philippians, and here's our little graphic for that. It's going to be an outstanding series. It's out of the book of Philippians. Philippians is 4 chapters, and every time I read a verse out of that, I got to reread it like 13 times just to think that I've got it. Job is 42 chapters, and it's all sorts of talking. And so, anyway, I just appreciate it that we're going to go through this, and we're in this together. I probably dislike Job and the book itself, not him, just about as much as anybody. But in our frustration and in our lack of attention, it's important to remember, and I just want to say this before we really get into it, that God, in all of his 66 books, it's a living book. Every single word, it can be affirming to everything that we hear in our prayers, in our personal meditation, and even in our conversation in our small groups. This word is super important, and God can speak to us through it. And so I encourage you to listen and go with me. We're going to have a little bit of fun today, and we're going to look at Job as much as I have a disdain for him. So, we're in chapter 33. We're right in the middle of, we're coming closer to the end of all the talking, and I have to ask, what can Jesus teach us here? What is the overview lesson? And what is Elihu trying to say? Elihu is one of the youngest. He was the one who was speaking in our lesson. He is the youngest of the fellas here. He's not even qualified as the top 3 friends. There's 3 other friends, and then Elihu gets to talk. And the other friends, they're really old, and he's the young guy, and he's fired up, and he's angry, because nobody's getting it, and we're just spinning our wheels. And so there's a little bit of a narrative that happens before Elihu starts talking, and it happens in Job chapter 32, verse 2. And this is what it says. He, Elihu, was angry at Job because he justified himself rather than God. Elihu thinks Job is too busy focusing on himself and his situation rather than the Almighty God and Creator. Does that happen to you? Do you ever get so wrapped up in what you're doing, or maybe even so focused and wrapped up in the negative that you forget to focus on the positive? I think that happens to all of us. I used to direct the college pep band for the Tigers down at Fort Hays. It was one of the best experiences of my life. See, I always had to turn around to look at the band. They didn't like the other side. But we would get to go to the postseason tournament for Division II basketball in Kansas City. This was an awesome experience. We got a free bus ride, we got free hotel, we got free meals, and we got paid to be there while my friends had to sit in class. This was all right before spring break, so we almost got 2 weeks of spring break out of the deal. And did I mention we just happened to share the bus with the dance team? So that was pretty good. Every now and then there would be this student, and you know who I'm talking about. He would, nothing was right. The bus was too crowded. The bus, stunk with perfume from the dance team. Like, come on, dude. The food wasn't good enough. We were eating at Jimmy John's. Like, come on. And anyway, the games were too long. Whatever it was, he would just let the joy get sucked out of him. And he wouldn't take the time to enjoy all of those other wonderful benefits of getting to be on this trip, let alone just getting paid to be there. And this is the way that Elihu is seeing Job right now. He's saying, dude, you're alive and you can come back from this. So quit it. Like, let's turn the boat around. Let's get going. Real friends shift focus. So do you have a friend who does this for you? Do you have a friend who pulls you out of your negativity and says, okay, we're gonna focus on the goodness here. We're gonna get upbeat. We're gonna keep going. I have a few. One is Pastor Doug. He's one of my favorite encouragers. Several of you are great encouragers to me, but my wife is probably the best encourager and the best at shifting my focus. She, if I've been at the office too late or been rehearsing with the band too late, she will send me a text, and she is so perfect in how she words this text. It's not, hey honey, you're running a little late. Are you going to come home soon? It's not, hey honey, I miss you. When you coming home? It's not any of this sweet stuff. It's very pointed, and she says, I want to get this right. Why are you not home yet? I could just pull up my phone because there's like 5 of those just in the last day. What she does was, and so pointedly is, and very convicting in the way she does it, is she gets my attention. She almost offends me with, why are you not home yet? As if I'm not doing something important. But she shifts my focus so well to being the husband that I promised to be and the father that I want to be. And so she does that really well. And real friends shift focus. I wish Elihu would have been this succinct. I think Elihu could have just in, half a verse said, hey, focus on God, and we'd have been done. And 4 chapters later, the end of Job. But he goes on for several chapters. And I'd like to highlight a little bit more of where he maybe goes wrong a little bit. And so let's look in Job chapter 33, verse 19. This is the Message translation of the Bible, and so I really like this version. Anyway, so God might get their attention through pain by throwing them on a bed of suffering, and I have to time out there. Elihu's saying that God's causing the pain in his life, and I don't know if I agree with that. And if you remember, we looked back in the beginning, it was Satan and sin that caused all of this. So it wasn't God. I just wanted to be clear on that. But he keeps going and going on this. And so we're going to go a little bit beyond our lesson today into verses 24 and 25. And this is how Elihu tries to put a bow on it. He says, a messenger who would mercifully intervene, canceling the death sentence with the words, I've come up with the ransom. Before you know it, you're healed. The very picture of health. So someone's just going to come rescue me and everything's going to be hunky-dory. Job, this accounting is a real life situation. I mean, and most of us know that in real life, things don't just end up all perfect and nice with a bow. We're talking about movies, and I think most of us would be very, very fortunate to have somewhat of a Hollywood ending. We just know that it doesn't work that way. Bad things can happen to all of us. In John, the Gospel of John, chapter 16, verse 33, the apostle there guarantees us that you will have trouble. You will. It's guaranteed. And so, what do we do about it? Forrest Gump, you know the movie Forrest Gump? We're on a movie kick this morning. See, he looks about homeless here. I love that. You know, he's been running for like 2 years now or something, and has got the long hair, the big beard, and man, it's so great. I love this particular scene. I think it's this scene. I think I got it right. This guy is running up next to him, and it's one of these guys anyway, and they're running, they're going, they're doing their thing, and he's starting to ask him for advice as a friend, and he stops and he yells, "Whoa, dude, you just ran through a big pile of dog." Thank you. Stuff. And their language goes a little bit different. But you know what Forrest says? Do you remember what Forrest says? He simply says, "It happens. It happens. Life happens." And he's just a great illustration of this today, even though it's a story, because he's just running along. He's so focused on his prize, so focused on what he's doing, that he's not going to let anything distract him. And so he encourages his friend by just saying, "It happens," and carries on. I love it. Real friends shift focus. And so we, as Christ followers, have a responsibility to not only shift our focus, but the focus of others upon the goodness and love of Jesus. We know that the joy of life, or we should know that the joy of life is really found in the joy of the Lord. And no matter what your situation, God's going to make it better. Whether you've just landed that new job or you've been unemployed for another month, we should focus on Jesus. Whether you're at the peak physical conditioning of your life and you've never been healthier, or you just got out of the hospital again, we should focus on Jesus. If you've got all of your bills paid and you get to take that summer vacation again, or the creditors have started calling daily, we should focus on Jesus. And here's the one that gets me the most. And those are the extremes, but if you're just fine right where you're at, you're not really having any problems, there's things to do, but you're okay, then that's the most important time to focus on Jesus and share that focus with others. Real friends focus on Jesus, and they share that focus. So what I think Elihu is really after here, and to take a page out of Doug's earlier sermons to say we as friends should ask really good questions, this is the big question. How is God going to work this for your good? This is what Elihu really should have just driven home with Job. How is God going to work this for your good? It's a great question, and I think we should all consider it, because I do believe God does discipline us and train us and make us better. As it says in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 11 through 12, "My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline, or be weary of his reproof. For the Lord reproves him whom he loves, as a father of the son in whom he delights." Let's be really clear. And we mentioned this earlier. The pain, the suffering is not from God. It's from living in a fallen world where Satan exists, and we have to live in the consequences, not only of our sin, but the sin of others. But no matter your situation, no matter what you've done or haven't done to get into it, God's going to work it for your good. Real friends will shift focus. Okay, Job is a sad story, right? It's a really sad story, and sometimes we can get down in it. But to illustrate the point that no matter what your situation, no matter how bad things are or how good things are, when you shift your focus, incredible things can happen. So I want to tell you about my friend, well, I wish he was my friend, David. David grew up in a little town called Texarkana. Have you heard of Texarkana? We got a little, so it exists on the state line. There's the courthouse right there on Texas and Arkansas, hence the name Texarkana. And he grew up there. His dad is an insurance salesman, and even at a young age, he thought, hey, selling insurance, that's not too bad. I can make an okay living at it. And he even started interning at the insurance firm before he went to college. But to really be equipped, he went to college over in Baylor at Waco, Texas. And while he was there, he made a good friend. His friend invited him as a musician to come help lead worship. He said, hey man, you've got some good songs here and you kind of do this on the side. Would you like to do this as you go to college? And he did. So before we go on in the story, do you catch what happened? This friend has already shifted his focus. Everything was fine, but he's already shifted his focus. And what was really cool was David did. He helped lead the worship, and on the side, he continued going to college, and things were good. Things were really good, and he helped out with the church, and the church grew, which is all what we hope for. But, and as incredible as that is, to grow a church, the story continues. So David was bebopping along, doing his thing, singing the songs at church, and then he gets a call. He gets a call from Pastor Louis Giglio. Have you heard of Pastor Louis Giglio? Have you read his books? There he is, and you can see how large of an auditorium he's in. Pastor Louis now puts on the largest. I don't know if it's even rivaled by any other conference in the world, and it's called Passion. Literally tens of thousands of students show up to these gatherings, and they fill football arenas to worship Jesus. It's incredible. So this was a few years ago, and Pastor Louis says, hey, David, I think you got a really good song here. Can we use it at our conference? And David was just blessed. Yeah, go ahead, please, sure. And that started a wonderful relationship. That started a friendship between Louis and David. And this friendship eventually led Pastor Louis Giglio to ask David. He said, and I want to get this right. He said, you know, David, maybe these songs are meant for people outside the four walls of your little church in Waco. What an incredible shift in focus. Not only to Jesus, but serving his whole people. Remember, David wanted to sell insurance. David wanted to just stay under the radar and live the American dream. He wanted to play it safe, but God had a bigger plan. And in two different friends, in two different occasions, God was able to shift his focus back to his glory, his goodness, and his kingdom. And David Crowder, who we sing his songs very regularly, we sang a couple of them this morning, now leads tens and thousands and arguably millions back to Jesus. That's how God works, when we keep our focus on him. And I'm not saying that if we just continually focus on him, that it's going to lead to full-time ministry, full-time fame, whatever that is. That's beside the point. The point is, when we shift our focus to Jesus, we're not only going to be able to endure our situation, but we're going to be able to become the best version of us that God had ever intended. And I think it's no coincidence that after Elihu shared this focus with Job, God speaks to Job. We're literally in chapter 38, Elihu finishes his speech, and in chapter 39, God starts in. The text doesn't say this, but I think it was Job who finally was focused enough to hear God's word and help him do what he needed to do to move on. And so over the last several weeks, we've talked about Job, and we talked about his friends and how to become a better friend. And so if you get anything, I hope you get this. First, do not condemn. That's been lifted up in every single sermon, and it's been lifted up in this one. Don't condemn anyone for anything, because like Job's friends, we probably don't know the whole situation. All we can do, and let me pause for a second too. If I've done that, any kind of condemnation, I want to apologize for that too. It's not right. That's how important this is. But what we are supposed to do, and what my goal is today, is to encourage you to focus on Jesus. It is in that focus and in that hope and in that love that God's plan is fulfilled, and it's wonderful. And so we should just simply we should simply help our friends shift their focus to Jesus. And just maybe, we could be part of leading tens of thousands to worship. Wouldn't that be incredible? I'm going to invite the band up and just also invite you into a time of prayer as we continue in worship. Jesus, sometimes we think that you're playing puppet master. Sometimes we think that our situation isn't right and you've caused it or you've allowed it, and we need to remember right now that that's not true. This situation exists because we exist in a fallen world, and what you want to do is remind us that you are the love in this creation. And so right now, whatever's going on, we just want to surrender to you. We want to be reminded of the beautiful creation that we are in you, that we are made in your image, and that maybe the most important lesson out of Job, that in all of the pain, all of the suffering, and everything that happened, God, we remember that you were the one who protected his life. You have protected his life. And it was you that restored him through your glory. So right now, that's what we ask for. Whatever we have, as great as it is, as bad as it is, or if we're just somewhere in the middle, we want to give it back to you and sing your praises. It is in your name that we pray. And all of your people said, amen.